The regular Louisville Metro Council meeting of April the 25th, 2019 will please come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Green.
Here.
Councilmember Shanklin.
Present.
Councilmember Dorsey.
Present.
Councilmember Sexton Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Purvis.
Present.
President James.
Here.
Councilmember McCraney.
Present.
Councilmember Cone.
Here.
Councilmember Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Here.
Councilmember Kramer.
Here.
Councilmember Blackwell.
Here.
Councilmember Fox.
Here.
Councilmember Fowler.
Here.
Councilmember Triplett. Here. Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Winkler.
Here.
Councilmember Parker.
Here.
Councilmember Piagentini.
Here.
Councilmember Benson.
Present.
Councilmember George.
Here.
Councilmember Engel.
Present.
Councilmember Peden.
Here.
Councilmember Flood. Councilmember Yates.
Present.
Councilmember Ackerson. Mr. President, you have 24 in attendance and a quorum.
Thank you, and let the record reflect that Councilman Flood has an excused absence.
So noted.
Councilman Dorsey, I think you have a special guest today.
Yes. Would Eleanor Jenkins please stand? She will be our page for today. And Eleanor is a lifelong resident of Louisville, Kentucky. I say lifelong for a reason. Her mother, Couture Jenkins, is with us today in the audience. And Couture came here from Chicago and since has met her husband and started a beautiful family. And Eleanor is the offspring of that. So Eleanor is tell them how old you are. Say it loud. She is 7, and she attends the ML Menace Junior Academy in the Russell neighborhood. So welcome, Eleanor.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Sexton Smith, I think you have a point of personal privilege.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And if I may, I would like to read a brief statement in honoring and recognizing what is soon to be in a couple of days, April 28th, which is the National Observance Day for Workers in America. So it will be a National Day of Observance on April 28th in observance of those who have suffered and died on the job, and to renew the fight for safe jobs, inasmuch as our labor unions have tirelessly fought to strengthen workers' rights and to make the workplace safer for all employees. We want to commemorate Workers' Memorial Day, April 28th, on behalf of the Greater Louisville Labor Council and all unions in our region, a passionate advocacy for this city's unions and all the members, and wishing every worker in the city of Louisville best wishes as they continue to serve the greater good. And during this last year, it is great sadness that we have lost 2 workers whilst on the job. Mr. Thomas Talon, who worked with Public Works, and Officer Deidre Mangadote, representing LMPD. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, and those watching on Metro TV, each year, by law, the mayor presents a budget for Metro government, no later than Metro Council's second meeting scheduled in the month of April prior to the beginning of the fiscal year. The Metro Council then has until the last day of June to review and pass the budget. We are honored today to have with us our mayor, who will present his proposed budget for fiscal year 2020. Help me welcome Mayor Greg Fischer.
Well, thank you, everybody. I thank the council both for your service here in both a promising and a challenging time for our city. Each of us has decided to run for public office to make a difference, believing that we had the skills, the experience and passion to help our city grow and our city to succeed. When I ran for mayor, I wanted to work with our residents, the council, and the Metro government team to help our city emerge from the Great Recession stronger than ever, with a renewed sense of confidence and possibility, with a growing economy, creating opportunity for people in every neighborhood in our city. Fortunately, we're experiencing economic prosperity unlike anything our city has seen in generations. Since 2011, our city has created 80,000 new jobs, opened 2,700 businesses, welcomed $13 billion in capital investment, including nearly $1 billion in West Louisville. We're creating a more equitable city where everyone shares in our prosperity. Over the last 4 years, we've invested $41 million in affordable housing. We've seen 20,000 Louisvillians lift themselves out of poverty, and 17,000 families join the middle class. We established a global reputation as a city of compassion, turning our Give a Day week of service into an annual festival of volunteerism. Good news on that front. In partnership with Metro United Way, we again broke our world record again this past week with 235,000 acts of volunteerism and compassion. Thanks to all of you all that helped last week. We're working to address public health and public safety challenges like opioid abuse, hepatitis A, violent crime. And our strategies are seeing success. And I want to emphasize that we achieved all of these by working together. My office, the council, our citizens, our great team of Metro employees, a long, long list of community partners. These are our accomplishments. And our work has been validated repeatedly by third parties. Public health, for example, just received a $4.6 million 5-year federal grant to reduce infant mortality and improve the health of newborns in 5 West Louisville zip codes. $4.6 million on projects that work. Last month, we broke ground on phase 1 of the Beecher Terrace redevelopment. We're working with the people of Russell to revitalize that historic neighborhood. This $250 million project began with a $29.5 million federal choice neighborhood grant that we competed against more than 30 other cities to win. Still, there is much work to do and successfully compete with our peer cities, as so many steps we still need to take to reach our full potential as a city. But we are making great strides. And for me, every step forward provides more fuel to fight harder, move faster, because I believe in the people of Louisville and the opportunity-rich future they deserve. That future requires investment in our municipal and social services, as well as physical and human capital. Those are the beliefs that guided the crafting of the 9 budgets that I've presented to you, including the one I'm presenting today. This budget proposal is balanced as required by law. A $623 million general fund budget. Revenue forecasts assume a growth rate of 2.9% and no recession. And of course, as President Obama once said, quote, "A budget is more than just a series of numbers on a page. It is an embodiment of our values." Each of our budgets has embodied our city values of health, lifelong learning, and compassion, and was designed to move us closer to our full potential as a city. And each budget received the overwhelming approval of this council, passing by an average of 90%, a tremendous endorsement of our shared values, of the work done by Metro government, and of the overall direction of our city. Your votes have been critical to our city's progress. What makes this budget difficult are the parameters under which we were forced to create it, specifically the need to cut $35 million from an already lean operation. That's due primarily to two main issues. First is the huge increase in our state pension obligation, a debt created not by any of us, but a debt we're still required to pay. The second is this body's vote against revenue to avoid cuts in services. Let's start with the pension. In July of 2017, the Kentucky retirement system changed its assumptions about the return on investment on all state pension funds, including the one that covers Metro government employees. We lobbied the General Assembly to lessen the impact of that change by phasing in this enormous expense for cities and counties, but there remains tremendous uncertainty around pensions, what actions Frankfurt might take, and what impact they might have on our future. That uncertainty continues with KRS's announcement just last Thursday of revised assumptions that will further extend our increasing pension obligation. Our CFO has briefed the council on the potential budget impact from pension numerous times, starting in November 2017 and all the way up to an orientation for recently elected council members this past December. I've been talking publicly about the pension challenge since July 2017. Standing here 1 year ago at this address, I warned that, quote, absent accelerated revenue growth, this pension issue will be a drag on our budget for the foreseeable future. That future is here. Metro Pension's obligation is now growing by about 12% a year, starting with an extra $10 million in the current fiscal year and another $10 million for a total of $20 million in the fiscal year that starts this coming July 1st. And the tab, it just keeps growing. Initially, we expected our pension bill to increase by about $10 million a year until 2023, meaning at least another $30 million in cuts in the 3 years after the budget I am proposing here today. But just last week, as I said, the Kentucky retirement system adjusted its predictions again. It now appears, unfortunately, that we can expect the rate of increase in pension funding to continue even beyond 2023. To understand the impact, consider this. At merger, our pension bill was 7% of our budget. By 2023, our total state pension bill will be around 21% of our budget. Before being mayor, I spent 30 years growing national and international businesses. So here's how this businessman sees this. Our pension costs will triple over 20 years, and we know they're going to keep growing. At the same time, our citizens, our customers, are demanding and deserve increased services. Now, in the past, we've met those demands by increasing our efficiency every year without once raising our prices. In business context, a price. In a public context, that's called raising taxes. Do you know a company that could absorb an increase this significant? 14 percentage points, over $50 million, without raising its prices. When a business is faced with a challenge like this, the first thing it does is to make sure that every dollar is being used efficiently. That's why we've worked every day for 8+ years now to apply the principles of efficiency and innovation to Metro government. We established our nationally recognized Louisville program, which collects and uses data to help us constantly improve. Run by our Office for Performance Improvement, it has helped us find more efficient ways to reduce accidents in public works, manage our vehicle fleet, reduce ambulance turnaround times, and many, many other areas. Additionally, the Office for Performance Improvement processes have resulted in millions of dollars in savings and cost avoidance for our taxpayers, helping us create what data shows is one of the leanest mid-sized city governments in America. Cities across the United States see Metro as a model for excellence in operations. Just yesterday, the nationally respected What Works Cities organization recognized our effective use of data and innovation to create efficiencies and improve services. Louisville is just one of 4 United States cities with gold certification status, one of 4 cities chosen out of 90 applicant cities and over 200 eligible to apply. So think about what that means. It's a strong validation of our work and our stewardship of taxpayer dollars, and it's something I think we should all be proud of. On top of all of these accomplishments, the Office for Performance Improvement has competed for and won $13.5 million in grants for our city, an amount that exceeds the lifetime operating cost of this office. Also, of our 19 peer cities, Louisville has the 4th fewest city government employees per capita. That's another sign of a lean operation, effectively delivering more services with fewer people. Flagship rating agencies like Fitch, S&P, and Moody's have given us some of their highest ratings for financial stewardship. And the Government Finance Officers Association has honored Metro government with both its Excellence in Financial Reporting and the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the past 6 consecutive years. Folks, all of these accomplishments and third-party validations confirm that our Metro government team is among the best in the nation. I want to thank all of our Metro government employees for the work they do to make these outstanding achievements possible. I'm also grateful to our employees and the members of the public who responded to our request for ideas and suggestions for dealing with this pension-driven budget crisis. Many of the suggestions echoed our belief about the need for more revenue options to support this work that keeps getting validated by objective third parties. All that being said, we will always work to improve, to cut costs, and to face challenges head-on. That work is never over. To deal with the budget challenge for the current fiscal year that ends in this June, we operated like a business with accelerating costs. We eliminated almost 50 positions, adopted new fees, implemented a hiring frost, and limited spending. But that approach could only take us so far, because for 8 years we've been adding services to adjust to changing demands without raising taxes. In fact, merged government has never raised taxes. The last county tax increase was in 1990. The last tax increase in Louisville city government was in 1982, 37 years ago. In February, I proposed to phase in an increase in the insurance premium tax, the only option that the state allows us that would provide sufficient revenue in time to prevent drastic cuts. I also released a list of the potential cuts that would be required over the next 4 years without any new revenue. My intent was to be as upfront and transparent as possible about the potential impact on public safety, our economy, our workforce readiness, paving, libraries, and other services, and our need to invest to keep our city's momentum going. Last month, 15 of you all voted for cuts over the revenue required to maintain services. And I know that was a tough vote. And for the council members who were recently elected, I know that it is no small thing to ask you to vote on the first revenue increase since merger just a few weeks after taking the oath of office. Nonetheless, there was a choice to make. All revenue, a mix of cuts and revenue, or all cuts. And it's no secret that I strongly disagree with the choice made by the majority of the council. That was the choice that was made. A former U.S. Supreme Court Justice, Oliver Wendell Holmes, he reminded us, taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. It's one of the few times taxes gets a round of applause, by the way. And I believe, though, that after this budget process, our city really needs to have an honest and clear-eyed conversation about the type of services that people expect and deserve and what they're willing to pay for. For now, though, my responsibility is to translate the council's vote into a budget. So let's talk about the details. Our projections earlier this year showed us facing a $35 million shortfall including the $20 million bump in our pension obligation. Since then, due to changes in tax receipts, workers' compensation, and auto insurance expenses, and our employee health care costs, our starting deficit has decreased from $35 million to $32 million. To help cover a small portion of that, my budget assumes the council will vote for the statutorily allowed 4% increase in property tax revenue, netting us an additional $1.2 million. That's the only new tax revenue source proposed in this budget, though we're also increasing some fees. This budget requires painful cuts to all agencies in all parts of the city. One priority for this budget was to maintain basic municipal functions for a growing city of almost 800,000 people. Decisions were guided by a thorough review of data and our commitment to equity. Public safety was, of course, a top priority as our first and greatest responsibility to the people of Louisville. The brave men and women of LMPD do incredible work under very, very difficult circumstances that very few of us would sign up for. They've also helped lead a 10% drop in violent crime over the past 2 years. Yet, budget restrictions forced us to cancel the recruit class that was to start in June. To mitigate that, we're ending the $2 million subsidy to Jefferson County Public Schools for school resource officers and reassigning those LMPD officers back to the street. We do plan 2 police recruit classes later in the fiscal year. Even so, we expect a net reduction of about 40 uniformed officers, depending on final attrition numbers at LMPD. There have been calls to exempt police, fire, EMS, and corrections completely from cuts. And we did cut a smaller percentage of their budgets than many other agencies. But given the size of the budget shortfall and the fact that public safety is about 60% of our budget, it's impractical to totally exempt them. For example, we could completely eliminate Metro Parks and Recreation, the Louisville Free Public Library, Louisville Zoo, Metro Animal Services, and our entire Codes and Regulations team, and we'd still be millions of dollars short of resolving our multi-year budget challenge. So it's not a workable solution to exempt those public safety agencies. And I also want to emphasize that public safety is much, much more than our men and women in uniform. Our resources and people and agencies like public health, safe and healthy neighborhoods, libraries, parks, community centers, also make essential contributions to public safety by making sure kids have a place to go and trusted adults to help them stay on the right path. Public safety is supported by people throughout the community, many of whom work or volunteer with nonprofits that Metro supports through external agency funds, also known as EAFs. I'm talking about social workers, reading tutors, mentors, coaches, faith leaders, and many, many more. However, this budget unfortunately cuts $500,000 from EAFs. Our hope is that community partners will step up to fill the gap in the funding to these important organizations, because public safety is a condition that we create together in this community. One of the principles, ways we do that, is by communicating to our residents, especially our young people, that those that are growing up in challenging circumstances, that their community believes in them and that their community invests in them. That's why it's important that we keep investing in our Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, which coordinates outreach programs like Reimage, Cure Violence, Pivot to Peace, the work to stop violence before it begins. These programs have helped over 500 young people find the path to a hopeful future, which makes our city safer and more prosperous. Impressively, since we established the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods in 2013, it has brought in nearly $7 million in grants to our city, including most recently a $5 million federal grant to help Louisville families and young people most affected by trauma, inequity, and violence. Still, the pain of this budget touches every agency, and we're having to reduce the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods budget by nearly $450,000, or about 18%. Another principle for us in crafting this budget was to minimize the pain on our most vulnerable. So while we have to reduce our investment in affordable housing from the $12 million allocated last year, we are designating $5 million for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. While we're eliminating funding for the living room, because of its per-visit cost of $500, we are investing $1 million in overall homeless services. That still will not meet the enormous homelessness challenges. So I'm calling on individuals, businesses, nonprofits, and faith groups to step up even more and help us address that need. I am really appreciative of the good work of our community ministries, their ability to stretch a dollar is like any other organization. So we'll continue funding them at the $1.1 million level. We have to make these investments because we know that if we want people to be productive, they have to have enough food to eat and a stable and affordable place to call home. As we reallocate and cut resources, we must also recognize that it's smart to make investments that help our city adapt to the reality of changing times and prepare for the future. According to a Brookings Institution analysis put out a couple months ago, Louisville's jobs are more vulnerable to automation than all but 7 other U.S. cities. So our economy is going to change. So we have to get our city ready. We have to help our businesses get ready, and we have to help our workforce get ready for this massive change. That's why I'm investing $300,000 to support our efforts to quintuple the amount of tech training that we've got going on in our city, to scale successful programs like Code Louisville, and start new ones like the BIT 502 Tech Apprenticeship Program. Louisville received a significant boost for these efforts just this past week when J.P. Morgan Chase announced that we've been awarded a $3 million Advancing Cities grant to fund the creation of Tech Louisville, a new Kentuckiana Works program that will train and help 300 low-income people start a good-paying career in the technology sector. Our city's application was one of 5 selected from 250 cities that applied, further underscoring our ability to leverage value for our taxpayers through grant funding and a great team. Now, I approach the expenses of government as investments, and I believe we should expect a return. That's why we emphasize data to measure the impact of our investments. Data shows, for example, that summer works is a sound investment. According to a study by the Kentucky Center for Statistics, summer works youth are more likely to stay in the workforce and pursue post-secondary education than those who don't work in the summer. That's why this budget continues our summer works investment, albeit at a 16% reduction. Last year, 6,245 young people were employed by our summer works employer partners, a new record from only 200 in our first class of 2011. I really believe in summer works because I believe in the transformative power of work, especially of getting that first job and earning that first paycheck. That's why I'm going to invest in our city's youth by donating 20% of my salary in the coming fiscal year to summer works. I'm also calling on our business community to step up even more and help us mitigate these costs by supporting summer works youth. This budget allows us to keep all our community centers open, at least for the coming year. Community centers are an important part of our public safety strategy. giving kids a place to go for critical out-of-school time activities. Now, there were many investments we could no longer afford to make. This budget includes many difficult and painful decisions, like personnel cuts and elimination of key services. Key services like closing 2 libraries, 1 firehouse, 1 neighborhood place, and taking 1 ambulance off the street. This budget reduces funding for everything from our economic development initiatives to agencies that work to keep our city clean and green. This budget cuts yard waste and recycling pickup to every other week and reduces paving. This budget cuts each Metro Council's collective discretionary funding of $205,000 by $40,000. We worked hard to mitigate the pain wherever possible. While this budget cuts hours at libraries, for example, we are keeping them open on Sundays. Unfortunately, we're closing 2 libraries, Middletown and Fern Creek, which each operate in leased space. These actions will save about $1 million. In June, we'll be opening the beautiful new Northeast Regional Library, completing a key component of the library master plan. This new library is only about 4 miles from Middletown, which I hope will ease the inconvenience of that closure. Fern Creek is less than 5 miles from the J-Town Library and less than 6 from the beautiful South Central Regional Library. Plus, next month, we will reopen the St. Matthews Library. We contribute $1 million to leverage the more than $3 million of investment from the city of St. Matthews. Facing the reality of tens of millions of additional dollars in pension expenses in the coming years, we also will be pushing ahead on some long-range potential changes, including we will request proposals to set up the Louisville Zoo as an independent entity to help us cap our costs for that operation. Next, after the profitable summer golfing season is over, we believe we can save around $500,000 from our city's golf courses by bidding their operations or possibly closing up to 4 golf courses. And we will work over the next year to return operations for youth detention services to the state. Jefferson County has historically subsidized the cost to house youth at YDS to keep them closer to families and closer to schools. That's costing us $9 million more over the state reimbursement, and in the current budget climate, that's just impossible to maintain. By delaying this move until at least the end of the year, our goal is to give the state time to find a way to continue housing Jefferson County children in Jefferson County. As you've heard me say, everything in our city is connected. And all those connecting lines at some point come through Metro government, where our team of dedicated public service professionals works to provide efficient and effective services for the people of Louisville. I'm really proud of our team. That's why it pains me that despite all of our efforts, we will be forced to eliminate as many as 312 positions, including laying off about 100 employees. That includes full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees, union and non-union. In terms of our manager-to-employee ratio, data shows we are well within industry standards and not top-heavy. Still, we prioritize saving jobs that involve the direct delivery of our services to our residents. Government's a service business. About 70% of our costs are people. So unfortunately, there is no avoiding layoffs when we have to cut expenses. These are talented, hardworking folks who deliver critical services. And I hate the stress and uncertainty they and their families have been living with for the past few months. They deserve better. My budget includes funding for outplacement and other services to help them transition to other employment. Also, with the exception of those with the FOP Legacy Health Plan, all Metro employees will see an increase of 3% on health insurance premiums and an increase on deductibles and other out-of-pocket expenses. On the positive side, we will open a new wellness center, in addition to the one we have downtown, on Fern Valley Road this year to support our employees, help them stay healthy, prevent illness. I'm also proposing that we address the cost of living adjustments to non-union employees' salaries. Instead of a 2% adjustment for all, my budget proposes a 2% COLA only for those making under $60,000, a 1% COLA for those making between $60,000 and $80,000, and no cost of living adjustment for those making above $80,000. This budget invites Metro Council members to forego a cost of living increase as well. Cutting COLAs is not something I want to do. With our city's unemployment rate around 4%, and with all the uncertainty around our budget, we already are having trouble keeping and attracting the talent we need to deliver the world-class services our people deserve and demand. And our leadership already makes well below their peers in the private sector. So this will make filling positions and retaining experienced people even more difficult. As you all review the budget, I hope you can see that we worked hard to achieve balance in the choices that we were forced to make. Cuts affects areas all throughout the city, hitting every department, including my office and including the Metro Council's offices. Also, $2 billion, big number, $2 billion. That's the approximate total of our city's deferred capital investments. We've been chipping away at this over the years, but due to lack of revenue, I'm proposing the smallest capital budget in 6 years. We're making some targeted investments, but we will be stretched to keep up with all the potholes, broken sidewalks, and basic paving projects that need to be addressed. Now, it seems reasonable to ask, and many citizens have asked me in the past several weeks, why are we doing this to ourselves when our city is in the midst of all this economic growth? While we're cutting our infrastructure budget, for example, Nashville is spending $35 million on roads, $30 million on sidewalks, and $5 million on bikeways. That's $70 million compared to $17 million in our budget. Nashville also just made a $500 million multi-year commitment to affordable housing. These are relevant numbers for us to look at as we try to grow our cities against our peer cities. To stay competitive, especially at times like this, we have to take advantage of every opportunity we have. We've had several great community partners step up to help us. So we'll do more and more of that. I hope more and more community partners come forward. As I announced a few weeks ago, Louisville Tourism is contributing $500,000 to help fund the Belle of Louisville, one of our historic and iconic tourist attractions. And I'm really grateful for that generous action from Louisville Tourism. In addition, after hearing that we were forced to close our outdoor pools, a number of local organizations reached out to say that they'd like to help make it possible for kids to swim over the summer. We're working with Papa John's and other community partners to find ways to provide that opportunity at some other pools for residents of the affected neighborhoods. The unfortunate truth is all 4 pools operate at a loss and need millions of dollars in repairs that this budget just can't accommodate. I'm also reaching out to suburban cities, the business community, and philanthropic organizations to see how they may be able to partner with us in some areas. And let's remember, these are ongoing costs every year. So as you go through this budget proposal, I'm sure you're going to have questions, suggestions, and ideas, and my team and I look forward to hearing them and working through them with you all. My focus is on working with this council and the people of Louisville to create a responsible, balanced budget that doesn't compromise our long-term fiscal health. I can only support a budget that addresses our city's needs and challenges in a structurally sound way. During this budget process, we explored a variety of options and ideas, including many that I've heard some of you mention. One is help from the state. I wish that help was coming. For years, we've asked the state legislature to provide pension relief for Kentucky cities. I've advocated repeatedly for tax and pension reform. In 2017, this council unanimously approved a resolution calling on the Kentucky General Assembly to separate the County Employee Retirement System, CERS, the system we're all in, from the Kentucky retirement system. That didn't happen. Frankfurt has not delivered. We'll keep asking and advocating. That's important. And I want to be proven wrong. But we have to assume for now we are on our own. One other idea that's been suggested is using our rainy day fund to deal with this pension crisis. The rainy day fund is designed for one-time, unanticipated emergencies. And this budget challenge is not a one-time issue. It's an ongoing challenge that without new revenue, we'll have to deal with year after year, cutting 2 or maybe even 3 times as much, 2 or 3 times as much from future budgets as is cut this year. That is truly sobering, especially if you think of the additional impact that a possible recession hitting during these next few years might have. If we spend our rainy day fund on this year's budget, next year we'll have the same challenges, compounded by $10 million more in pension obligations, and the rainy day fund will be less than half its current fiscally responsible size. Also, our credit rating is partly determined by the size of our rainy day fund. And if that rating goes down, it will be harder and more expensive for us to borrow for capital projects like paving our streets, because investors want to put their money in organizations that have their financial house in good order. The fact that we are today fiscally and structurally sound is among the advantages we have as a city. Now, even with this pension challenge, the truth again is that our city today has good momentum. We've transformed our skyline with new bridges and landmarks. We renovated the gorgeous Kentucky International Convention Center, built 24 new hotels. We've developed Bourbonism, our city's first 365-day-a-year tourism opportunity. In 2011, we had no distillery experiences in our city. Today, we have 10, and they're helping us attract 16 million visitors a year to our city. We've been investing in our people, in our libraries, affordable housing, and in programs that open opportunities like Code Louisville, Pivot to Peace, and Evolve 502. Last year, we were named one of the top 15 cities in the country for millennial growth. It's a huge turnaround for our city. And the endorsement of national foundations, corporations, and federal agencies, and the millions of dollars they're investing us here reminds us that we are poised still to become one of America's next breakout cities. That's why I'm still so optimistic about the future of our city. And that's why I will keep fighting for more revenue, for more investment from you and from Frankfurt. I hope that you'll be part of that, mindful that while we deal with this pension-driven budget challenge, our peer cities, Nashville, Indianapolis City, Cincinnati, and many others, are investing in themselves, in their infrastructure, transportation, and quality of life at much higher rates than we are. As a city, we need to fully understand what it costs to deliver quality public services and what our competitor cities are spending. I can tell you this already. If Metro government does not provide at least the basic services that citizens and 21st century workers and companies expect, we will lose the economic competition and experience the job losses that go with it. Whether we're talking about business or government, it's absolutely essential to be lean and efficient. But you can never cut your way to greatness or prosperity. So, we must rise to this challenge, working together to move forward, to create the city of equity, opportunity, and job growth that our citizens deserve and demand, to make the investments necessary to sustain a thriving city that wins in the global marketplace and whose reputation for compassion, innovation, equity, and opportunity continues to grow on the world stage, and a city where every person has the chance to reach their full human potential. We all worked very hard to earn the leadership positions that we hold, to be the ones that Louisvillians trust, to understand the issues, the opportunities, and challenges ahead, to make difficult decisions at a critical time in our city's history. Let's show the people who sent us here that they made the right choice, that we can work together through this challenge and move through our next challenges for the good of one thing that unites us all, and that is the city that we love. Thank you all very much.
Colleagues, at this point, I'll entertain a motion for a 30-minute recess.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. It is approved. I'll see you at 5:15. Thank you.